as a person who already believed very deeply in the power of the mind with meditation, I teach meditation. I knew the mind mattered, but to realize that I can literally cure a so-called disease that's dominated my life for 6 years by changing my beliefs is a wild realization. And what it's done is make me think, where else in my life am I not believing hard enough in the thing that I know to be true? Now I'm like, what if I just let go of all this stuff? Don't try to do a diet. And so twice a day I've been doing this meditation for just seeing myself at a certain body fat percentage. There's no regimen. There's no I eat this, I don't eat that. There's no I work out at this time or that time. I'm just trusting my gut and my body. But I'm very interested to see the results in my physique from not focusing on food and only focusing on sending signals to my unconscious, subconscious mind, the shape of my body.
Ian, my brother, welcome to the Superhuman Life.
Yeah, man, very happy to be here.
Yeah, man, I'm really excited about really just picking back up a conversation you and I were having. So we had a chance to meet at an event here about a month ago. And one of the things that we were talking about there that you shared with me, obviously we know the world is governed by laws. Newton's law, I'm a big fan of Parkinson's law. You recently, and I'm not sure how recently you had this discovery, but you discovered your own law. So talk to us about what is Stanley's law and how did you come to this discovery?
Yeah, so I know most people don't have their own law that they've named after themselves, but I'm enough of a douchebag to do that. So most people have heard of Murphy's Law, which is basically states that anything that can go wrong will go wrong. And I think most people who believe that tends to be their reality. And so I created a new law called Stanley's Law, and it states that anything that can go right will go right. And since I've always been what some people might call, actually, my girlfriend said this yesterday, unexplainably optimistic, which I'm like, I can explain it. It's why not be optimistic? But this sort of even deeper level of literally believing in Stanley's Law has created one of the craziest, probably, I think it's maybe been almost 2 months, just spans of wild, amazing stuff happening where even though something that doesn't seem good happens and then it ends up being way better because of that thing that didn't seem good. And it's really another form of surrender and just trusting the universe. But ultimately, it's just this belief that, I think your beliefs create your reality. And so many people want their reality to create their beliefs and they won't trust anything until they've seen it. So to me, Stanley's Law is just believing that anything that can go right will go right. And it's the irony of the more you believe that, the more that happens. And like I've got a buddy, his name's DJ, and we used to call it DJ's Law instead of Murphy's Law because the guy just, we called it DJ Luck, and it was just horrible. Just anything that could go wrong for him did. Like he'd get in like a 10-mile-an-hour car accident, just like a tiny fender bender, and then end up with 7 screws in his foot and be on a, just horrible stuff that you're like, this is nuts. But so yeah, that's Stanley's Law. Anything that can go right will go right.
I love that, man. And I think I think us both being optimists, man, was really what was kind of drawing me to you. Like, I think we just see a lot of things very, very similar. I think we have a lot of the same beliefs around a lot of these things. I agree, 100% with that. It is our beliefs that dictates our realities. Now, there's steps that we have to go through, and that's really built into the work that I do with the men here at Rebuild Recovery. But for you, man, was this something that has always been a part of your nature, this eternal optimist, or is it something you've had to kind of be intentional about developing in yourself?
It's a good question. I think I sway naturally towards that way. I know a lot of people who like have a thing they've created, like I have this crazy story of I had, I was down on my luck and I'm like, no, I've had honestly a very good life. God's been kind to me. I've had, obviously things happen in my life that aren't great. Like I'm a human still, but I think I've had a pretty lucky run. And I think part of that is the belief. And also it's easier, of course, for me to believe that when I've had a very good life. But I just have never, I read the book As a Man Thinketh, I think when I was 18 and 19. And then when I was 22, I graduated college and I was dating a girl that I was just like, this probably isn't right. And I read As a Man Thinketh every single day for 21 days straight. So I read the whole book every day, which only takes 30 to 45 minutes, kind of depending on how fast you read. But I would read it every morning, the whole book, and not just like skim it, like I would read it. And in 21 days, my whole life just turned around and I dealt with all the stuff I needed to. I ended that relationship. I got a much better sort of, I started sorting out my entrepreneurial shit, and it was just recognizing the power of my thoughts and how important it is to think better thoughts. To the point where I'm like, I think I want to write a book just called Think Better Thoughts. That's like an updated version of As a Man Thinketh. That's not written in like 1920s English. Um, but I think I've just always known, not always known, but at least since, college, or so, the power of my thoughts. And I didn't have that in tennis or in sports. I was still a psychopath, but I could do it off the court. Um, but yeah, I think I naturally see the best. I call it Dumbledoreism, where I see the best in people. And you're like, Dumbledore's got Voldemort, and he's like, no, he's gonna be fine. He's a good kid. And you're like, no, he's a dick. He keeps killing people, and he's like, no, he's gonna be all right. So I naturally see the good in people, almost to a fault. But I'd much rather live that way than the other way.
Yeah, and obviously, this way of thinking, this belief system has played into your advantage. I mean, with your career, I want to talk a little bit about your entrepreneurship journey. Has there ever been a point in where maybe seeing the best in people has led you wrong?
I'm sure. Yeah. I mean, I didn't. I remember finding out that people lied when I was like 16, or I must have been 15. I was at this tennis academy in England, and I went to go have like lunch with my cousin, and I told him the story about my buddy Liam, and I would be happy to tell this story with Liam listening. He's my best friend in England. I live in Boise now in Idaho, but he would tell these stories about, oh yeah, mate, I was fucking smashing out this bird, right, and I was just absolutely giving it to her, and all these things, and we're like 15, and I hadn't had sex yet. I had a girlfriend actually who was in America at the time, and I'm like, man, I'm telling my cousin these stories. He's like, yeah, mate, he's lying to you, and I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, that story is not true. Like, that's just not happening. And I go, that's not, why would you lie to somebody? And he's like, people do that. And I was like, what are you talking about? I don't lie to people. So I remember finding that out and being like, oh shit, I didn't know people were out there just lying. Like, I'd lied to my parents, like any good person, but I didn't lie to other people. Um, and so I think in hiring, I think the biggest issue where it's affected me is hiring people for their potential, not for their reality. So, or keeping people around too long. Like, we had a guy who was, we didn't really know that he was actually an alcoholic. He'd kind of misled us in different ways, but then he ended up sort of going through divorce, and then went to rehab, and then we were like, he got back. I'm like, okay, that's fine. We'll still, we'll make this work. He's a good dude. We care about him. Then he went back again like 2 weeks later, and then we still were like, that's it, that's second strike. Like, and then he went again. I'm like, all right, this has to end, but we should have ended it, a couple months earlier. So I'd say it's not so much actually getting like screwed over as it is delaying things that need to happen. It's seeing people as like, I mean, it's like a lot of girls. I think women date men for their potential, and men date the women for who they are. It's like having a girlfriend that you live with is kind of like living with a dog trainer, who's just always conditioning you to do things that they would prefer. And you're like, why do I close that closet door now? Why am I afraid if I leave that open, something's going to happen? Um, so I think it's that danger of how many, like, a woman who, and this obviously men do the same thing, but women especially will date some douchebag guy like, no, but he could be so great. And it's like, yeah, but he's fucking not. Let him go be great later and then find him again. Like, so I think that's where it affects me is I'll hire people. I also hire people just based on what I see in them. And that can work really well, but it's a big risk. And at this point with my company, I'm like, I'm kind of tired of hiring people and being the person who takes a chance. I'd rather just be like, oh, you're good at this shit already? Cool. Come work for me. Let's do this. I'll pay you more than I'd pay that new person, and know that they're actually going to do their job.
Yeah, yeah, no, I love that. Hire slow, fire quick, man. That's something that I'm beginning to see the value in doing that. We don't have a massive team here at Rebuild Recovery, but as I've been kind of navigating this space, looking at some of my other friends, it's like, oh, that's why they take 6 months to bring on that person, and then they,
Well, and I know that phrase, and I've known it since I was young, and then I've lived. So I've known, hire slow, fire fast, and I've lived by hire fast, fire very slowly, and that's been fun. I'd say traction has helped a ton with that. The EOS entrepreneur operating system has helped a ton, where it's taken away the personal. What I had a really big realization a couple months ago, listening to, like, my favorite book of all time is called The Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer. I've read it, like, I'm reading it again now for like the 18th time in the last 3 years, 4 years. And it's become the foundation of my whole life. But there's a little like 2 hour thing on you can get on Audible called The Untethered Soul at Work. He wrote a book called The Untethered Soul as well. The Untethered Soul at Work is basically 2 hours of him just talking about how there's no separation between business and spirituality, and how business is essentially just a way to let go of yourself. If you're only spiritual when you're meditating, you're not a spiritual person. It's living a life that makes shit come up. Like, even for me, I'm always like, monks. People are like, oh, monks are happy. It's like, yeah, well, if you don't have a wife, you don't have bills, you don't have rent, you don't have friends. Well, fuck, life's easy, man. You just live in the woods and get rid of all the hard stuff. Like, a real enlightened person is living a life full of conflict and things, and then just allowing it to happen and being okay with it. But so he talks about how before um, he would just he just removing the personal. Anytime you get on a call or you have a meeting or anything, removing the personal, removing yourself from it, and being in higher service of the business. And he ended up, it's not really a spoiler because he talks about it at the beginning of the book, but this guy lived in the woods of Alachua County in Florida, and meditated every day and lived at this, what became a temple that he had built, and ended up running $1 billion company that he, from the woods of Florida. And he did that just by continuing to let go of himself. And so it's like a lot of times you get a spiritual person and they're just spiritual, or you get a business guy and they're just a business guy. So to have this really unique blend is why he's been such a great teacher to me. But in looking at that, um, he talks about just letting go of the personal. So now when I show up for calls and with people who I'm like, I don't know if they should be working with us anymore, I can honestly say to them, hey, if you don't want to do this type of stuff, if you're not right for this, that's 100% okay for you as a person. It's just not okay for our company. So you can be the way that you are with us. Because you're not shaming them. You're not telling them, hey, you're a piece of shit. Hey, you don't deserve to be here. Hey, this. You're saying, hey, for our culture, that's not a fit. And that's completely okay for you. It's just not okay for us. So either it changes or it doesn't. You leave and we're still friends. And so I've had this. There are certain things where you have to work repeatedly to like let go of something, and there are certain things where it just happens. And with this, I've had some of the hardest business conversations over the last few months, and none of them have actually been that hard because I built them up to be so difficult in my mind because I care so much about the person that I'm like, I want them to be okay. I want this to be this. Instead, now I'm like, oh, this has nothing to do with me or them. It's just in higher service of the business. So can I let go of Ian Stanley, walk into the meeting or the thing, and just let go of me and my personal preferences and feelings and just be honest? And it's like, and then those things go really well and everybody appreciates it. And it's, it always, the build up in your mind is always worse than the reality.
Yeah, that's so factual there. Let's talk a little bit about that early entrepreneurship journey kind of that come up for you. You touched on a little bit at the beginning, right? I think you said around 22, 23, you kind of had this, aha kind of clarity moment. And that was kind of, the beginning for you to kind of clean up some things. And that really enabled you to step into it. And I know you had some massive success early on. I believe, 100 million plus sold through your copywriting by the age of 30. Talk to us about, the journey in, where did that come from? Like, did you come from a family of entrepreneurs? Like, did you know always along, like that was going to be your path? If not, where did that initial kind of start come from? And then what were you doing in those early days?
Yeah. So is it a lot of entrepreneurs on this or want to be entrepreneurs, or who typically listens to this? Is it like,
yeah, so we got a blend. We have a good amount of current entrepreneurs, and then a lot of guys that have that dream and kind of goal desire. It's like wanting more out of life. So yeah, it's kind of split down the middle, 50-50, with 50% being already running their businesses. And then the other guy just seeking like, what is my calling kind of in life? Is it going to be entrepreneurship or is it going to be maybe intrapreneurship? And I think these conversations are valuable.
Absolutely. So I don't come from a family of entrepreneurs. My mom worked for herself technically at one point. She was a real estate agent when I was born. And then after like a year or two, she was like, okay, I'm missing all the weekends. So she started doing loans. And I know she had kind of her own group, but it wasn't like I own a business and I'm totally on my own. But she did have a lot more freedom than most people, it seemed. Although I'd say the real estate world in general is a very reactive industry, which is why I don't want to be in it, is because you're always at the beck and call of any person who's like, hey, if I'm buying $1 million house, I expect the person to respond to my text, and I'm not a very responsive person, not really on purpose. I just am not great at it. So it's like, that's not my industry. But so she did that. My dad worked in the travel industry, probably never made more than like 90 grand a year. But when the internet started to really be a thing, it must have been around like 2000 or so. I must have been like 10. He was like, hey, I'd like to work from home. And then he started working from home before that was a thing. He would do it from time to time, but he would drive an hour to work every morning and an hour back through traffic to LA in California. And I was just like, that seemed miserable. But he started working from home because he loves tennis more than anything in the world. I played growing up, I played in college. My mom and dad are still number one in the world for their age right now. They're in Europe playing at the moment. And so my mom and I actually won the national mother son last year, which is fun because I don't play anymore. And that was a nice thing. But it was so like I grew up, tennis was the most important thing. I was an athlete above all else. But he loves tennis more than anything, which is why I kind of hated it, because I was like, there was no more room left for me to love it with how much he does. But what I learned from him was put the things you love most first in your life. My dad was at every soccer match, every tennis match. And he played tennis as much as possible. So he started working from home so that he could, and he did it. I mean, I'm talking about way before anybody, like 10 years before people were doing this. And now people do it like regularly, but that's 20 years ago that he was doing it. And he's like, yeah, I think I could do some of this shit from home. And really, he's just like at noon, he would just go play tennis. That was all he wanted to do. So I did, even though he had a job, I saw what it was like to be like, this matters most. I'm going to do this. So I didn't see a traditional, like, miserable person go to a shitty job. But I'd say when I was in college, I knew I was either going to work for the government or for myself. There was no other option for me. I thought I was going to go into the army. I was going to go into the Green Berets in the U.S. Army. I thought that was my whole entire purpose in life, was to join special forces and kill terrorists. And when I was 21, I got a DUI. I was barely over the limit, wasn't swerving, wasn't speeding. I lived in a neighborhood where we had no crime, so they just were like pulling people over if you were driving past 2 a.m. And that sort of changed the course of my whole life because I had to put that on hold. And that wasn't, I don't do things like, I'm kind of interested in this. It was like, this is what I'm going to do. So after college, I basically, I wanted to go into the CIA or do something within that sort of realm. So it was like either I'm very opposite things. I was either going to go government or me. I knew that there was no world where I had a boss who just told me how to live my life unless they controlled my entire life when I was in the military. It's like one or the other. And so when I was like 22, I graduated college and I got a job selling direct TV at like Walmart's and like Best Buy. I would sell like direct TV packages. I did it for a couple of weeks. After 2 weeks, I was the top salesman, but I hated it. And I was working 10 hours. So we had Wednesdays off, Thursday, Friday, 8 hours, Saturday, Sunday, 10-hour days. And you're just on your feet the whole day. Monday, Tuesday working, Wednesday off when nobody else has a day off. And I was like, this is fucking horrible. I'm just trading time for money. If I'm not there, I'm not making money. So I was teaching tennis and I knew I could make 70 to $100 an hour teaching tennis. So I did that and I was trying to build my business on the side and just really didn't make anything happen. Like I was trying to do 50 different things. Like I was writing copy, I was building a product, I was creating the website, I was doing just all this shit. And I realized everybody that was doing that was broke. So I decided to pick one skill, and I hand copied a sales letter. So I said, I'm going to become the best copywriter possible. And I hand copied a sales letter for an hour every day. So I'd sit and I would write by hand. I would hand copy these sales letters. I bought this product called Copy Hour, and this is actually very cool and very funny timing. But uh, June 2nd, 2013 was when I bought that course. And as of yesterday, we just announced that I just bought that company. So the course that changed my whole life called Copy Hour, we bought the company. And so we announced the acquisition of that company yesterday, and we're doing a big launch of that product. So it's very cool, full circle. Almost a decade later, I'm now own the company that created the product that changed my life. Uh, so I just hand copied sales letters, got my first job writing it was from home. It was a contractor job, but writing copy for the credit solution program. Then I went and wrote copy for this company called Crisis Education, started doing videos, did a video where I drank toilet water. That went super viral, sold a bunch of stuff. It was for a water pitcher. filter. And then I left there, started my own business, had my own water filter company, sold that to, at the time, what was the fastest growing startup in Canada. And then I had a business with a therapist for a couple of years where I got like 30 years worth of therapy in 2 years because I was working with him. And all the while, I sort of had this side business teaching marketing and how to make money online. And then about 2 years ago now, that's become my primary business, is teaching people how to make money online, dealing with the deeper money blocks, the stuff they learn in childhood, teaching money meditations, and teaching people how to do like email marketing and stuff for other people.
Yeah, I
So
love
that's
that, man.
the version.
Yeah, no. Well, first off, congrats on the acquisition, man. What incredible timing, right? That might have been the first maybe public announcement outside of what you guys have shared. And I love how you remember those dates, man. It obviously shows how transformative that course has been in your life. What a cool kind of thing to kind of bring it all together there. We've had a couple different copywriters. We had Joe Legabo on recently. I don't know if you've ever really gone a deep dive into what is copy. So, we hear these words, copywriting, you talk about sales letters and whatnot. For the audience that maybe is not educated in the online marketing space, can you kind of give us a quick, kind of breakdown of what is copy, what is a sales letter, and why is this such a valuable high income skill set that one can learn and develop?
I mean, copywriting. So first off, plenty of people think it's like copyrights, like RIGHT. Like, oh, you do copyrights like a lawyer. And I'm like, fuck no. Absolutely not. Copywriting is basically just words that sell things. So it's just having the skill to turn words into money, getting people to take action, whether that action is, uh, buying a thing, doing a thing, changing their behavior, whatever it is. It's just persuasive writing, essentially, which to me is one of the most valuable skills you could just ever have in life, whether it's you're on fucking TikTok or Instagram or YouTube or whatever it is, being able to write great titles, being able to write captions, descriptions, being able to email people in a way that they respond to you, and being able to communicate effectively to other people. It's such a valuable thing in general to be able to write well. Um, but I'd say, the simplest way to understand it is it's when you're watching an ad or you're on YouTube and somebody pops up and it's just the words that are said by the person or the words in the ad in the ad itself, is what copywriting is. And to me, it's like like with Copy Hour, and obviously now it's my own company and product. I used to tell people about Copy Hour all the time before I owned it, and I've sold tons of it just through podcasts and things where I've talked about it. But I think everybody at one point in their life should spend a period of their time hand copying sales letters, ads, YouTube, whatever it is, and learning the structure of sales arguments, because whatever you do with your life, you're always making some sort of a sale, whether it's a friendship, a romantic relationship, a business partnership, whatever it is. There's always selling going on just in general, whether you want to acknowledge it or not. So to take a part of your life and commit to this rather tedious task of writing by hand, is such a valuable thing, because you learn how to understand sales and marketing at a deeper level. It trains your subconscious and unconscious mind to recognize the patterns of like, oh, now I see what they're doing here. It's different than just reading it and breaking it down. It's like when you painfully have to write it out. Fuck, now I get why they did this. Oh, I see that. And then also there's the non-conscious piece where you're just learning to understand the patterns of how this stuff works. So suddenly after even just a couple of weeks, you're like, oh my God, I can actually do this now. And all I've done is I haven't actually written anything myself yet. I've just hand copied these, but suddenly I can write.
Now, are you copying the same sales letter over and over and over and over and over again, and that's where the pattern is being reinforced, or is it a different sales letter every single time?
You could. I would do different ones. So I would pick stuff that's interesting to you first off, because it's a lot more painful if you just hate it. That being said, the first year and a half of my like real copywriting career, I was writing emails about credit scores. And I was like, and I had a dating business as well. So the first thing I actually sold, when I was 20, I wrote a book about how to pick up women and sold, dozens of copies. And I had this side business teaching dating stuff. And then we ended up, like, my buddy and I were doing workshops where guys would pay like $3,000 to come out for 3 days, and you teach them, and I would basically just get paid to go party at night. We just go out, and I was, 23, and it was amazing. But so when I was writing for the credit solution program, I'm like, if I can make emails interesting about credit scores and about, credit cards and shit, then I can make anything interesting. So it was actually super valuable because I wrote about something that's sort of inherently more or less boring. It made me really good at writing because I wasn't writing about inherently interesting things. So I would say hand copy different sales letters each day. Um, or if there's one that you love and you really want to master, I'd say keep doing that one. But ultimately, if you're interested and you're intrigued, it's going to be better. The other thing I'd say is find sales letters or emails or YouTube ads that are going to cold traffic. So people who don't know the guru yet, like if you go read a sales page by a Tony Robbins, where everybody already knows who he is, that's way less valid than copy by a random person nobody knows about. Because even for my own sales copy for my own business, for me, is worse than the copy I write for other people, in the sense that when I'm writing for someone else, which I don't do much of anymore, but I have to be really good because they don't know me already, they're not a fan. Like for my business, a lot of my customers will buy anything I put out, like because they just trust me at this point, and I could write a sale. We just did our biggest highest number of units sold of a new launch, and there was basically no copy. It was like, hey, how to get your first email client, pay what you want. And I did do a 2 minute video, but it was just sort of a joke, and half the people watched it. And you wouldn't look at that and go, this is great copy. There was like 7 words of copy on the page. It was just people trusted me at that point. So go and find sales letters and messages from people who aren't known, who are running cold traffic to like an audience that's never met them, because that's how you get really good. That's how you know that that thing actually works, rather than just like some famous, online famous person has a sales page. People may be buying just because they trust the guru.
Yeah. So would this be going to like ClickBank, maybe, and then going to like top page of products and seeing the products that are maybe not associated with a personal brand, and there's not going to be a story behind the individual? Would that kind of be where you would
I'd
find
say
some of
going to
these?
ClickBank in general, going to their marketplace and seeing the top offers, that's going to be some of the best copy in the
Top
world.
offer. Yeah.
And like ClickBank I live in the same city as ClickBank. They paid me for consulting. I'm friends with them. Last night I was at a bar and one of the guys from ClickBank bought me a drink I'm like, who the fuck is that? And his back was turned and one of them was there. I'm friends with all the ClickBank people. But I will say, some of the offers, when you read the sales page or watch the VSL, you're like, ooh, little cringy. But they work. So there's a level of like, for me, I have an ethical responsibility to myself to write only true stories and to do things that I believe in. Not everybody in our industry feels that way. I would actually say that most people, the ethics have only gotten worse over the last 10 years. I've watched it just de-escalate into. The good thing is with some of the ad channels, people are always so mad about like, oh man, YouTube banned me. And Facebook is full of Facebook just sucks. They'll ban you for things that they wanted to tell you about that had nothing, that was not wrong. But like some of the people, you're like, yeah, you should be in jail, bro. Like, not only should you be banned, like you should be in fucking jail. And some of these people who I know are finally getting in trouble with the FTC, and people are like, man, I feel bad for them. I'm like, I don't.
Yeah.
I don't feel bad for them at all. They should be in fucking jail because I have to compete with them while they're making these insane claims about like you're going to be rich tomorrow and just touch this button and you're going to fucking shit money. And it's like, this is outrageous. And they're just making up stories. So ClickBank is a good place to go, but don't get too turned off by some of the sales pages will be like, you want to take a bath after reading them because you're like, this is gross. But also understanding that the average human IQ is 100. Most of the people listening to this podcast are probably higher than that. And most of the people that, if your IQ is over 100, most of your friends are probably over 100 too. But that means half the population is less than 100. People are not intelligent. And you're writing a lot of the times to the lowest common denominator. You have to make sure that a person with an 85 IQ understands the sales page just as well as a person with 120 IQ. So you've got to be able to write to a wide array of people without dumbing it, without making it stupid. It just has to be easy to understand. So the big thing with writing is being able to write at a third grade level. There's a thing called HemingwayApp.com. It's free, and you just put all your writing in there and try to get your writing down to a third grade level. And that doesn't mean it's stupid or dumbed down. It's just concise and easy to understand.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of talk around Donald Trump, like when he won in 2016, like that was what they were saying is like he spoke at a third grade level across all of his speeches. That was a lesson I had to learn early on. So I was in the health and fitness is where I broke out in online, obviously competing with these, sip on this, lemon water and you're going to lose 73 pounds overnight type of, sales stuff. But I came from a background of bodybuilding and I had a wealth of knowledge. And it's like, I wanted to demonstrate that. So I thought the more intelligent I sound, the more people are going to be attracted to it. And I've learned that lesson myself. So there's a real valuable.
It's like, have you heard of Nassim Taleb? You know him, he wrote Anti-Fragile and Black Swan and stuff. Like, I think his concepts are amazing. Someday he might hear me say this on something. I normally only do it when I speak and it's not recorded, but the dude, it's all just 25-cent words. It's just him trying to sound as smart as possible. And I just assume that he is writing and jerking off at the same time. And he's just like, I'm so fucking smart, dude. Do you guys see how smart I am? Can you guys tell by what I'm writing? And he's just, I don't know how he gets through the pages, is they're probably just covered in his, you know, fucking, you know what? I don't know how inappropriate I can be, but the guy is just clearly in love with how intelligent he is. And my thing with that is, if you really want to serve your audience, write in a way that everybody can fucking understand. I'm a relatively smart person, and when I'm reading Nassim Taleb, I'm like, all right, I need a fucking break. My brain's like, okay, but you could have said this all so much more simply. So the goal isn't to make other people think you're smart, it's to help people, and it's like you talk with bodybuilding, talking about all these different terms, even like Thomas DeLauer is a buddy of mine, but like he gets so in the weeds of like, these different pathways and shit. And it's like 99% of people are like, just tell me what to do. Yeah, I don't understand how the ATP is affecting my mitochondria and shit. Like I don't get it. So it's being able to speak at a level where people understand, not dumbing it down, just making it easy to understand.
Yeah, I wasn't planning on spending this much time on copy, but I'm really
Yeah, I don't
enjoying
want
it. I
to
think
talk
it's
about
really.
it very much, but that's fine.
Yeah, no, it's good. I'd love to maybe talk about maybe some of the components of a well-crafted sales letter, but prerequisites. So, you had talked about you had experience selling direct TV in Walmart's first, and then you got into copywriting. What do you think are some of the necessary prerequisites to make a good copywriter? Is it the ability to sell? Like, is that something you need to have sold with spoken word first, or
No, I'd
yeah?
say not even at all. I'd say most copywriters are weird introverts who don't want to leave the house. I'm like I'm not the like traditional personality type of a writer. Um, Despite being a writer, they're like, a lot of them just want to be home alone and be like, I don't want to talk to people. I just want to be with my books. Um, for me, I'm like, no, I love people, but I love my alone time of writing as well. I would say most copywriters haven't sold in person ever. And I only did that. I'm a natural sales. I feel so now. Like I coach our sales team who sells like our high end, high ticket products, and I feel like phone sales is cheating. Like when you get to talk to a person one on one, you literally get to ask them what matters to them in their life. You get to find out their identity. You get to find out the identity they'd like to have. You get to feel their feelings. You get to see what matters to them. Oh, why do you really want to make 10 grand a month? Well, I just want more money. Why do you really want to make 10 grand a month? Well, I'd like to be able to fly my wife's family out from the Philippines and not have to worry about it. I'd like to have a house with a backyard that my son can play in. Or the biggest one that will always get like some big, I just want to, I miss every soccer game my son plays in. And so it's like, I'm not selling them a product. I'm selling them the ability to watch their kid play soccer. I'm selling them their child having a childhood where their dad's present. So now I'm no longer selling a product, and I can't do that in a sales page where I'm talking to, when I was selling water filters, I mean, I've got to have 1 million people hit this page and get 2% of them to buy. I can't ask them their individual problems or questions or desires. So you have to be really good. With selling one on one, you get all these cheat codes of what are your objections? Oh, cool. Okay, well, here's what I would say to that. Blah blah, whatever. But honestly, the prerequisite is, can you write? Like, can you send an email to a friend? Is what I would say. If you can send emails to a friend, you can make money online. As long as you can conjugate with mildly decent grammar, like not incomprehensible. If you literally just start hand copying emails or sales letters, within 2 weeks you can be passable enough to be better than most business owners just by doing that, committing to that practice, even for 20 minutes a day.
Wow. No, I love that. Guys, there's there's something really actionable literally to walk away with. I mean, I know there's a lot of you guys out there hearing this right now. They're like, I don't know what I should be doing. I'm stuck in this 9 to 5, or I'm trying to, learn these skill sets. Literally just start copying sales letters.
Yeah, and
Is
even I
that the
would say
difference?
email is the easiest thing, to be honest. And this isn't me just promoting my own stuff. I don't care if you ever buy anything from me ever. the main thing we teach now is literally how to write emails for other companies. Because building your own business, finding products, being an affiliate, building a list, running traffic, all these things are complex. Even writing a sales letter, like I was saying, getting 2% of people to convert takes skill, and it takes a certain level to get to. Um, Sales letters are long and they're just more complex. Writing emails is fucking easy. So what we literally mainly teach people now, like when we work with newbies, is just how to write emails for other companies and how to get paid. Anywhere from 5 grand. We have our best student makes like 33,000 a month, and that's all profit too. That's the difference. It's not like a drop shipping business where these douchebags on YouTube are like, "Yo, bro, I got my students making 12 grand a month with their drop shipping business." And I'm like, okay, well, what you didn't tell us is that they spent 10,000 on advertising and 4,000 on inventory and they lost $2,000. Like, you're not telling us that part. Um, but really, writing emails is way easier because every company there's maybe, this is the honest truth, is there's maybe 300 to 500 companies that are really good direct response companies that you could write VSLs for that would pay you, video sales letters or sales letters that would pay you 25, 50 grand to write. There's 33 million small businesses in the US. There's probably 32 million of them who you could write emails for. You can write emails for chiropractors, for dentists, for dog groomers, for lawyers, for direct response companies, you know, for companies like Lions Not Sheep, for apparel companies, for gun companies, for whatever it is. They all benefit from email. So it's a much easier path into making money to just write emails for people than it is to learn, honestly, any other skill.
Yeah, we've tested a lot of different copywriters for rebuild recovery. I get probably 5 or 6 guys in my inbox per week. They're all going
Some
through
of
the same
my
training.
students, I apologize. They might be hitting you up.
Probably. I mean, I can see the ones that are coming from the same kind of training background because it's like the script is the same. It's like, hey, I caught this. I really like
I
this
don't
YouTube
do much
video.
scripting. There's like little templates, but the whole thing I tell people is be a human and actually take the time. Like if I were going to try and get you as a client, I would actually go to your website. I would go find something I like about it, find something that's not that good, and then I'd find something else I like, and I would tell you all three things. And I'd be like, yo, I love your message. I think we believe similar things. I would tell you something that you actually knew. I looked at your website, not that I sent this fucking generic reach out. I get those all the time. You could have taken 1 minute, read something on my website, found out something about me, related to me. Somebody could even go look at my page and be like, oh, this guy's a Liverpool fan. And if they opened up with, hey, mate, fucking die, I know you're a Liverpool fan. Nunez looking good this year. Boom. I'm like, all right, I'll read the rest of this just because I'm such a psycho for Liverpool. Like, take a minute, 1 minute to find something out about the person.
Yeah, and probably don't open up with something negative like your sales could be doing a whole lot better. Like you have no idea how well our sales are performing. For that to be the opener, like you should be doing better than what you're doing. Like, yeah, you turned me off already.
I do the compliment sandwich, right? So you give them a compliment, then you say, here's something that could be better. And now here's another compliment. So you're like, oh, that was nice. Oh, that was nice too. And then you're like, okay, that was, that's the right way to do it. Unless everything sucks, then,
Because you can't lie. You can't make something up and lie to them because that means you're not a good person. Yeah, we already covered that at the beginning. Uh, so we got the tactics and strategies. I think that's great, guys. There's a lot of value in the last 20 minutes. Let's talk about the attraction kind of mindset. I know that's really what you're focusing on now, like changing our beliefs, changing how we even see money in our life. So what's the biggest thing you have seen that holds people back from attracting money into their life?
Yeah. So if we have time to go over it at the end, by the way, I was going to say to you, I had like one of the most life changing things of my whole life happened this last weekend around food, which I know we talked about food and carnivore and this stuff. So if we want to go into beliefs at the end of this, it's going to sound insane, but it's completely shifted my perception of the entire world. Like that crazy of a thing.
Well, can we just get into it now? Can we tie it into the question that I just asked? Does it make sense?
Fits into the money stuff that I teach and that I believe is that. So I think our identities create our reality. So whatever we identify as becomes the truth. And I don't mean that as like 2022, I identify as a fucking cat and you better respect it, or identify as as a mongoose. And, I know there are teachers. I had a woman come up to me at an event I spoke at last week, and I made a joke about these kids identifying as cats. A girl here that we know in Boise, a girl at her school identifies as salsa. And she has read and green hair, and she has to treat this girl like she's salsa, which I'm like, well, then just fucking throw her in the trash and eat her.
Yeah, what does that even mean? You poke her with tortilla chips, and I
She
don't.
just has to respect that she identifies as salsa. And I'm like, that's insane. But this other woman came up and she's like, I know you're joking about the cat stuff, but it's real, which I know it's real. But she said she was a teacher and they had to have a meeting about putting litter boxes into the bathrooms at school so that these kids who identify as cats could use the litter box. And she's like, that's the day I quit. I quit that day because I'm like, I can't fucking be a part of this, which I'm like, I don't have kids yet, but I'm like, they're not going to a school. And because now think about the teachers that are staying around, the teachers who are like, yeah, no, let's put a litter box in the human bathroom. And they're teaching your kid,
He
and
said,
you're like, what the fuck?
"Wow."
But then there are great teachers who are, this is what they want to do with their life, but they have to teach kids that identify as cats now. And they're like, hey, what's 5 times 5? And they're like, meow. And they have to be like, yeah, that's correct. Good job, fucking kitty. But the sad thing is they're driving home. It's not like they leave school and they're like, man, I had to teach a cat today, but at least I'm in my fucking Porsche going to my mansion. Right? They're leaving school going, well, at least I get to drive in my 6-year-old Honda Civic to my studio apartment that I hate. Like, it's sad. It's funny,
On a
but it's
less than a quarter tank of gas and not enough money to put another gallon
yeah.
in
And
it
they're
until the
like, well, at
paycheck
least
comes in.
tomorrow I get to teach a cat again. But anyway, I've been working on. I might do a bit about that at some point in my act about this girl that identifies as a cat, and I want to act out the cat. And so for people, I do stand up as well, so it's uh, that's a whole fucking the cat thing. So identity. I believe that whatever you identify as becomes your reality. So the simplest example is like if you identify as an overweight person, you identify as if your identity is whether it's conscious or unconscious. I'm not saying you walk around and you're like, oh, I'm chubby, but a lot of people will do that. They're like, my dad was chubby, I'm chubby, my family's chubby, it's my genetics, it's this. Well, if your identity is that you're overweight, you'll see people get lean, and then they'll just go back to their set point of their identity. We all have sort of an identity set point. Whatever we believe is normal, we sort of always revert back to the mean of our set point. Right. So if you think about us, most of us have a weight set point. Most of us tend to weigh around the same. Not me, and not probably somebody like you either, who's like lifted a bunch and does a bunch, and you're like more variable. Most people tend to weigh the same amount, or they gain like 2 pounds a year because of the shit. But like they go back to what their identity is. So I identify as a fit person. So the second, if I don't have like at least the outline of a six pack, that day, if I notice that, my behavior changes to match my identity, which is that of a fit person. So, and this will lead into all the money stuff. But so I got diagnosed with Crohn's disease 6 years ago, I think 5 or 6 years ago at this point. And before I got diagnosed with Crohn's, I'd had reactions to beer. I thought I had gluten issues, and then I'm like, okay, well, I just eat mainly white bread, which most of the gluten's enriched out, and then but I still drank beer and stuff, and then I started getting sick in the middle of the night drinking beer, and I would throw up, and I go, it must be the beer. So suddenly I'm wildly allergic to beer, and this is going to sound like a fucking crazy story to people, but that's okay because it's worthwhile. And then I basically one day I was shitting and puking, the most pain I've ever been in for 17 hours straight. Finally called the hospital. They're like, hey, you need to come in now. Had my friend drive me in. The most annoying parts about going to the ER, I get there, and I'm literally doubled over. I can't like walk to the window, and I go up and I'm like, ah. And like, what's your pain? And I'm like, 8. And I'm like screaming, but I'm like 8. And this chick is in front of me before I get up there. And she's like, hi. She shows up for the ER, and they're like, hi. And she's like, I'm here for the ER. And they're like, okay, what's your pain level? And she's like, it's probably a 9. And she's fucking smiling and talking. I'm like, you stupid bitch. You're a 3 at most. Get the fuck out of here. Go home. I have a real problem. So I just remember being like, you don't smile and say you have a 9. You have things coming out of your skin if you're a 9. So I go and I'm like cramped, and then they end up basically diagnosing me with Crohn's disease and saying, hey, good luck, go on your way. This is what we think you have. And so I had a buddy who had Crohn's, and I called him, and he was like, yeah, do this autoimmune protocol diet, basically cut out all these things. Did AIP, autoimmune protocol, which is basically just meat and some vegetables, but I didn't really eat many. And then but I mean, I couldn't even have like canola oil, couldn't touch something. If gluten touched it, I was like deathly afraid of everything. where I'd have to go if I ate at a restaurant, like, hey, I need meat, but I need it to not touch anything. I need you to not use any oils. I need you to just do this. Super extreme. And I went from like 200 pounds to about 165 pounds, wasted away. Like I found a picture the other day and I look emaciated. I look like I'm like training for a movie role, like a Christian Bale type of like The Machinist. Like I look sickly. And I was just wasting away. I had diarrhea like 9 times a day. And basically, long story short of all that, because I could go through all the crazy shit, but I, for the last few years, have primarily just eaten meat. At times, I did like a parasite cleanse, and then I could eat some spicy food and some things, but I always just felt better on just meat. I couldn't, if I had gluten, I thought I'd legitimately go to the hospital, or at least if I did, like if something even touched gluten, I'd get sick for like a day or two, like brain fog, throwing up, shitting, horrible. So I'd avoided it and just continued to make food the victim, or basically used food. I wasn't like, oh, I have this disease now, this Crohn's disease. I'm a little, I have to succumb to it. I used food to basically, in my opinion, heal it or get rid of all the symptoms at least. But I didn't become a victim of Crohn's disease. I just used food to move around it basically. And most people who have Crohn's don't look like I do. They don't have muscle. They're not in. They're either skinny fat or they're really wasting away because your body's at war with itself. After 6 years of this, of avoiding, I hadn't had a beer in 6 years. I hadn't had gluten in 6 years. I hadn't had, I'd had stuff that had touched it by accident and gotten a flare up and all this shit. And like, so a few weeks ago, I hired this gut health. He basically, I had a buddy who worked with him, and his Crohn's, same guy who I'd called, his Crohn's was horrible. Like he ate only meat with salt for the past couple of years, nothing else. Couldn't have anything. And suddenly he's eating all these foods. He's eating like pizza and pasta and gluten, and not like gluten-free pizza because I've been able to eat that, but like all this shit. I'm like, what? Okay, I got to try this. And it was $5,000, but I was like, if you fix this, I don't care. I don't care if what it is, because even though I don't really have symptoms, I still live a life of avoiding so much stuff. I thought for my whole life I'm going to be avoiding. I have to know, like when I eat a thing, it has to. Did it touch anything else? Was it near stuff? What is in this? What is it? All this shit. And basically, this guy's thing, and this is kind of a longer story, but it's so up to him. But he basically is like, you just have to believe all foods are safe. And I'm like, okay, get the fuck out of here. Like, I've read literally 100 books on diet and fitness. Gluten is terrible for you. Meat is the way. Everything else is bad. What are you talking about? And he's like, no, all foods are safe. Think about the amount of people who eat foods that are completely fine. And you're like, okay. And then he basically goes through your timeline of like anybody with Crohn's apparently has the same circle in their brain, this halo on an MRI scan. And basically, it's this thing called German New Medicine. And it basically states any of these stomach issues come from a complex shock, like a trauma or a complex shock. So when he looked back and actually like he goes through this timeline of when I started having issues with beer, I'd gone through a breakup before that. And so the sickness wasn't from the beer, but then I attached it to the beer. So then your body does develop a legitimate allergy. So it's not to say that the allergies aren't there, but it's because your brain decided that there was an allergy. I know this is going to sound fucking crazy. Believe me, 2 weeks ago, I wouldn't have touched anything. And I'll get to where I'm at now, which is absolutely insane. But basically, I developed that allergy through that belief. And then I look through and I look at all the stomach issues. And when I actually got Crohn's was actually after I'd gone through this really intensive therapy, 5-day intensive therapy with the therapist who became my business partner later. So even it could be the resolution of a good thing and all this like emotional stuff happening. When I did ayahuasca, I had the first vision I had was of these aliens and bugs and worms living in my stomach in this colony. And I started puking them out in my mind, but also in reality, like puking. And that next day, this when my Crohn's was really bad when I did ayahuasca, I had my first solid poop in like 9 months and I cried. Like I was like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. And so when I look back, I'm like, oh, it was the ayahuasca. Now it was actually, I had let go of this relationship that I was in. I had cheated on the girl and she didn't know, but it was like, I had this guilt still and I'd let go of her during ayahuasca. And so it wasn't actually the ayahuasca, it was the resolution of this thing. So suddenly my stomach was healing. And then I've gone through, these different supplements and the stuff. I'm like, oh, it's the supplement that's letting me do this or it's whatever. So ultimately, when I looked at each time I decided a new food was bad, it was after something. Typically for me, I don't really get bothered by much of anything, to be perfectly honest, except like breakups or relationship stuff. Nothing else really. It's just whatever, it happens. Like, I don't really get affected by it. And so, but then what happened is I would attach anything bad that happened was always attached to the food I ate. And so I basically demonized all food that wasn't meat by the end of it. So this last weekend, I mean, we're talking about today is Friday. On Saturday night, I got back from Nashville. I'd been working with this guy for 2 weeks, and I'd been telling myself over and over, food is safe. All food is safe. There's no such thing as unsafe food. And Saturday night, we got back, went to a bar, and I said, I'm going to have a beer. My girlfriend didn't believe me. She thought I was going to like back out last minute. We get to the restaurant. I get a beer. I get a wheat beer too, which is like the most traumatizing thing I could think of. Drink it. Oh, so good. So good. I love beer. And I hadn't had beer in 6 years. Drink the beer, have a burger, no gluten-free bun, just a bun, sweet potato fries. Shit that for any normal person, like, yeah, that's not a big deal. For me, it was like, I didn't even have to say, like, because even as it's gotten better, I'm like, I have a gluten allergy. Can you tell the chef? Hey, like all this shit. And my identity was wrapped up in that too. So realizing all these identity pieces of, oh, I'm a healthy eater. I'm this, I'm that. If I eat something that's not meat, my knees start to hurt. And it's like, okay, well, what comes first to the next, and I'm still like, who knows, maybe I'll get sick. But I knew if I got sick, it wasn't because of the food. It was because of the emotional release of eating the new food and stuff. I haven't had a fucking issue in a week. I have eaten Pizza Hut, which I'm like, oh, what piece of shit? I had Pizza Hut. I've had Coors Lights. I've had Blue Moon. I've had Chipotle. I've had fucking, I haven't had any ice cream yet, like with gluten in it, but I've had, and then even this chocolate protein powder I have, which is like high level, like high end fucking liver, nice, like good protein. I'm like, oh, the cacao powder is bad. So the second I had that belief, I went and had the protein powder. And so the therapy is basically in the exposure. And I went from literally thinking 2 weeks ago, if I touched gluten, that I could be potentially, I wouldn't say at this point thought I'd go to the hospital, but I'd think I'd be diarrhea, sick for a day or two, brain fog, unable to work. And instead, I'm able to eat. Literally, now my mindset is I could eat gravel and be fucking fine. Like, I can have anything, any food. And it's not just, I'm not sitting here saying now go pound canola oil and eat, but I'm saying you should be able to without any gut issues. And so all of that, that's a long version of the story, but obviously this is a new thing in my life. But I'm literally in my energies through the fucking roof because my body's not fighting itself anymore. I'm not at war internally with this, so-called autoimmune disease. And so this is, as a person who already believed very deeply in the power of the mind with meditation, I teach meditations. I've been meditating for almost half of my life now as a 32-year-old. Like, I knew the mind mattered, but to realize that I can literally cure a so-called, disease that's dominated my life for 6 years by changing my beliefs is a wild realization. And what it's done is make me think, where else in my life am I like not believing hard enough in the thing that I know to be true? Like, so now instead of doing, because I've got a weird relationship to food over all these years, and I know I've been talking forever, but hopefully this is interesting to people. But I've got a lot of weird relationship to food from reading all the books I've read, trying all these different diets, all this different stuff that like now I'm like, what if I just let go of all this stuff? Don't try to do a diet. Don't try to do a certain thing. And instead, what I've been doing is I took my money meditations and I created a new version for myself. I'm calling it like the ideal body meditation. And so twice a day, I've been doing this meditation based on the same formula of how I do mine for just seeing myself at a certain body fat percentage and not trying to control my diet at all, just allowing my subconscious mind to dictate my food and what I eat and my working out. I've been pushing fucking hard in the gym, loving it, like feeling so good. Um, and so I'm not doing there's no regimen. There's no, I eat this, I don't eat that. There's no, I work out at this time or that time. I'm just trusting my gut and my body. And obviously this is early days, but I'm very interested to see the results in my physique from not focusing on food and only focusing on sending signals to my unconscious, subconscious mind to change the shape of my body. Right. And now eating fucking just food. Like I had, and whatever I'm afraid of, I do it. Like I was out at this restaurant, these guys had pizza on the trays that were out. And I'm like, I would never just touch a pizza that's been out. And I just went, fuck that. I'm going to go have a bite right now. And so I just see the thing I'm afraid of, and I immediately go do the thing that I'm afraid of, because I know that that's where the therapy is in the exposure to the supposed trauma. And so we can go into that, but I can sort of relate that now back to money and how I see all this is. So basically, my belief about money since I was probably like 15, we had moved into this neighborhood that's like, there's a neighborhood where like Tiger Woods, Pete Sampras, Britney Spears, Wayne Gretzky, all these people live in California, called Sherwood. And we had bought what is literally the cheapest house in that neighborhood, which was like $800,000. It's not like we weren't living. I mean, Wayne Gretzky's house was 25 million on the other side of the neighborhood. Like, but we would drive around the neighborhood, and I would see these monstrous houses, and I would go, if all these fuckers are rich, there's no way I won't be rich. And so since I was 15, I've always known I'd be rich. And so now if you look, and you look at like people who, like my business partner goes, I can fall asleep anywhere, anytime. I can eat any food. I get the best sleep in the world. And that's true. You literally look at his Aura ring and his stats make me angry. Like his sleep and REM are insane. And you go, so which one came first, the reality or the belief? And then you meet people who are like, I could eat anything, and they can. And then you meet health obsessed people who have read every book, who have limited themselves down to, like, I was at the extreme. I'm like, man, there's monk fruit extract in this protein powder. That's probably what's making my skin have a reaction. No, that's fucking not true. But that's it. So it's the people that become most obsessed with everything being bad that suddenly have no tolerance for bad things, for life. Like you, because you've demonized everything to the point where you can't tolerate any of it. And so looking at this with food is such a crazy thing for me because of my relationship to it over the past 6 years. And even in college, I got diagnosed, or they tried to diagnose me with inflammatory bowel disease when I was 19. But I didn't go back because I wanted to go in the military, and I didn't want them to have that diagnosis on there. So I just didn't eat gluten really for them. I didn't avoid it altogether at all. I just didn't eat wheat. I ate like white bread. But so you look back, that's fucking 12 years now since I was 19 of like having these crazy relationship to food, 13 years. So now it's like, well, where else are these beliefs happening that what else can I change as a person who already believes in the power of belief? And with money, if you believe you're a poor person, or if you believe you're not worthy of money, you will always stay that way. You could have $1 million get put into your bank account and you will lose it. You will find a way to lose it, to revert back to the mean, to your identity set point that you think you are. So you look at half of the people who win the lottery go bankrupt. That's because they have a broke mindset. Think about the type of person who buys lottery tickets is not a person who really understands money. Fundamentally, if you're buying lottery tickets, you probably don't get how money works, right? You don't have a good relationship to it because you're hoping and praying that money's going to find you randomly, not from an abundant place. Maybe some of them have an abundant mindset and like, you know what, I get really lucky and money finds me. And those are probably the half of them that fucking keep their money. But it's their habits and their identity. Their identity is not a rich person, so they don't stay rich. So it's like, whatever if your relationship to money is fundamentally flawed, you could have all the skills in the world. You could, the biggest question I'll ask people when I speak is go, who here has made more, and this is typically at higher end, these people have made money right now, go, who here has made more and more money but have the same amount of money in their bank account? And a bunch of people are like, oh, me, what the fuck is that about? And I'm like, I used to have the same thing, because on some level you either don't feel worthy of it or you're finding ways to offload it because you're at your comfort threshold of money. So it's like people will find ways unconsciously to meet the place in their mind that they're comfortable with. So if you can shift the identity, you can shift the reality. And so it's a whole wild thing. And then last night, one of my employees is like, how do you just believe shit? Because I think that's one of my superpowers is that when I believe a thing, I believe that thing. And so many people don't. They doubt themselves. And so it's really interesting conversation last night. It's like, well, what do you do? Do you have doubt? And I'm like, yeah, I do. I don't have a lot, but I do. I'll have
You're
like this.
doubting. You're doubting your doubt right now. You're
Well,
like,
I'm
I
like,
have a little bit.
I do have some. I'm like, but what do I do? And then I was like thinking about it. And like last night I had my stomach hurt a little on the drive up from the restaurant. And I go, oh, that can't be and the first, oh, that could be the food. It can't be the food. And so I double down on my beliefs. And this is, now I'm going to go to the deep end of the woo woo crazy just because this happened last night. It's very weird. And then I'll bring it back to earth. So I believe in the Norse gods. It's a weird thing, but those are the gods I believe in. When I did ayahuasca, I saw that the god, the world was created by Loki, and that the world is basically a sitcom created for the gods to watch, and they fell so in love with the show that they started sending themselves down here from time to time. That's why when we meditate or we have deep experiences, we remember that we are God. But they send themselves down here to forget that they're gods, because gods are perfect and we're imperfect, and that's the gift of being human, is that we get to fuck shit up. Even in the Christian religion, right? What is the first thing humans do? Eve's like, I really want that apple. I need it. And she eats the apple. The first thing we do as humans is fuck up. And that's why we're here. But so this is really bizarre. Anthony Hopkins plays Odin in the Marvel movies. Last night, I'm on Instagram. We've had all these talks about belief all night. And this video, Anthony Hopkins doesn't do Instagram videos or TikToks or he doesn't do like random videos to the camera. And he has this one video and it pops up and it's like, he's like, I believe in the power of belief. Like people ask Anthony, why do you believe a thing? He goes, if you don't believe it, that's okay. Just believe it and play the game of belief until you believe. And I'm like, okay, so the guy who I identify with as Odin, who plays the god that I actually believe in, is now sitting here talking about belief and saying because I think you get to choose your beliefs. I think this is the fundamental issue of so many people's lives is they don't choose their beliefs. They let their beliefs choose them based on whatever they're doing. And they just go, this is what I believe. And they've never thought, well, what if I could believe something else? Well, fucking pick a better belief. Well, I believe that I'm doomed. Well, that's fucking sad. Why don't you change that? Well, I can't change that. No, you can't even decide to choose your own beliefs. Just choose better beliefs, man. This isn't that fucking hard, but people want to make it so difficult. Just choose to believe it, and you can. And so then I pop up, and there's this video of Anthony Hopkins talking about playing the game of belief and just choosing beliefs because you should. And you're like, that was one of the most bizarre things last night to see. So that's kind of the wrap up of just, I think we can choose our beliefs. And I don't think many people believe that. And that's the challenge, though, is now you have to change the belief that you can even change your beliefs. But once you do that, suddenly the whole world opens up.
And it begins to compound and it gets easier and easier and easier. It's tough at first, but your subconscious is reprogrammed by the conscious thoughts that you drive into it. Guys, that was incredible. Like, I hope everybody was tuned in listening. Like, Ian, I don't know, you probably get 5-6 figures to go speak on stage, man. We just had you for 30 minutes nonstop, just delivering tremendous, just groundbreaking, powerful mindset, belief shattering, like literally how to change your life, jam-packed in the last 20 minutes, bro. I love you so much, man.
It was good because I know I was off on a rant there.
No, dude, it all came together so well, and it tied everything that we talked about together from the beginning. Like, what is good will happen. Whatever is good is going to happen in our life, but it's only going to be a byproduct of our subconscious belief patterns and how we consciously program that. Dude, I had no clue where we were going to go today, man. Like I told you from the beginning, this was the least amount of prep work just because we had an amazing conversation and I just feel a connection from an energetic standpoint with you, man. So incredibly grateful for you. I know the audience got a ton out of here today, man. If people want to connect with you, if they want to check out, your companies, what you're doing, I know you're not huge on social media, but share where people can reach with you and learn more about everything that you're doing out there.
I do a lot more on social media. I'm putting a lot more of my comedy and stand-up and stuff up there. I actually just had my first real hit. I don't know if you saw this one, 120,000 views of it's my stupid, simple self-defense. Sort of like a self-defense parodies. I used to do parodies of like entrepreneurs like Lai Topez, Kent Cardone, Very Grinder Chuck. I'll start doing them again. But basically, so at Becoming Ian Stanley on Instagram. And then that's for comedy stuff, life stuff, all that. I actually have a comedy email list called ianstanleycomedy.com. But what I would say, if you want to change your money beliefs, go to moneydnaquiz.com. There's a free quiz there. You do have to opt in afterward. You can opt out after, but it'll give you your biggest money block based on your childhood. So based on things like, did you get paid to do chores growing up? Did your parents say certain phrases? And there's 5 core money blocks that'll tell you your biggest one. And then just started a free YouTube channel with all my meditations. So we're releasing one new one a week. And that's just Money Meditations - Ian Stanley on YouTube. So I'm breaking the rule of copy of giving you only one thing to go do. I would say if there's one thing, just go follow my Instagram and then, or actually probably opt into the email list. Money DNA Quiz would be the best thing because I tell my email list everything.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that, guys. We'll get all that plugged down in the show notes and in the description here on YouTube. We did the Money DNA quiz with Ian in Vegas, and I don't think because I think he had left by that time. So that final night, I think after we did the money meditation, actually had $100 just appear. I say just reappeared, but it's been a company I've been kind of a partner affiliate with a while. I haven't put any focus or attention into driving any traffic to it for a while, and then literally driving to dinner that night in Vegas after doing that money meditation, I get a notification like $100 is about to hit your bank account from this supplement company. I was like, this dude Ian, man, like he hit it right because he said we were all just getting money from somewhere unexpected that night. So yeah, guys, go check out that Money DNA quiz. We'll get all Ian's stuff plugged down there in the show notes.
Awesome. This is
Yeah,
fun.
man.
Thanks for letting me talk about that. It's all brand new, so it's like
Dude,
it's my
it's
first
awesome,
time
man.
technically
I'm
getting
glad to have a platform where we can share for the first
next
time.
time
So we do.
I can drink beer now and just eat random food, so it's a wild experience. So
Yeah, man. I'm looking forward to linking back up, man. So we have a last question. We like to end every episode here. Obviously, Ian, the title of the show is The Superhuman Life. You know me, you know where I kind of come from. We've talked a lot about this. I do believe that we're all here for a purpose, but I think a lot of people stop there. Like, yeah, there's a purpose for my life. Like creating a superhuman life is how are you intentionally going out there and bringing that purpose to the world to create good for others. So I like to end every episode here with a guest take. So Mr. Ian Stanley, the Persuasion Hitman himself, how would you define living a superhuman life?
I would say putting the things you love first in your life, and not getting in your own way. Learning that I think the primary reasons we're here as humans is to increase our tolerance for good feelings, and we have such a tendency when things go well to fuck them up. So whatever it is, I would also say just whatever you want to do. This is so cheesy, and a less cheesy way to say it maybe, but just you have to believe in you more than anybody else. I used to make that mistake. I think, oh, well, why would people doubt me? Why wouldn't they believe in me? And it's like it's not up to other people to believe in you. It's up to you to believe in you. So like I know I'll be a world famous stand up comedian, and there's plenty of people who would be like, "You're out of your fucking mind." I don't care. Nobody else has to believe in me. I just have to. So I'd say it's the same for everybody else. You just have to believe in you more than other people.
Love that. Guys, you heard it here. Put the things you care about most first. You know, show me your calendar. I'll show you your priorities. Ian, dude, I love you so much, man. Thank you for your time here today, guys. Hope you got a ton of value out of this. Real actionable stuff, real life-changing, transformative conversation here if you were actually paying attention and apply the things that Ian shared with us. So we appreciate you guys for tuning in. And we want to thank you. You know, we've seen some tremendous growth here at the Superhuman Life over the last couple of months, and it's all because of you guys. So if you want to continue to see the show rise up those charts, you can support us in one or two ways. First off, quit being a freeloader and leave a 5-star rating and written review. You guys give us an hour every single week. Take 2 seconds and leave a rating right there on Apple or whatever platform you are consuming this on. But more importantly, for somebody in your life that is maybe going through some identity struggles, maybe they're not attracting the money that they deserve into their life. Do us a favor, but do them the blessing by sharing today's conversation with them. But for Ian Stanley, Frank Rich, host of Superhuman Life, we love you guys. We'll see you next week.